Namaste. Welcome to Lotus Flower Wellness Temple. I'm happy that everyone's here today, whether you're on the live or you're here in person. As the TV says over here in this nice little video that I made, everyone is welcome and loved here. So everyone around the world, local, doesn't matter. We accept and love everyone. So. All right, we're going to start today's session with the Sambujo chant. Now I'm going to get that started right now. Let me turn this other one off here. Bigger for you if you want to follow along on screen or to thank everybody for coming. This means a lot to me, and I'm doing what I'm very passionate about, which is helping and healing people and helping people be guided back to their own personal truth and finding joy and happiness in the life now. So there are ways of thinking and just really simple kind of aha moments when you realize those, you can start to make little shifts and changes that really do affect your life on a grand level. And so being aware of those really can give you a real good shot at having some happiness and really finding your soul's path and purpose here in this lifetime. And that's my passion and my joy, is to help people reach that. You know, enlightenment is something that's a lifelong process, and it continually happens. All right, do a little sage burning here. Get some energy cleared. Okay. We respectfully welcome Amida Buddha to our temple as we scatter flowers of joy. I got you, Quinn. Yay. We respectfully welcome Sakyamna Buddha to our temple as we scatter flowers of joy. We respectfully welcome the Buddhas of all times to the place and places to our temple as we scatter flowers of joy. Give you some more, buddy. There you go. You want to scatter a few, throw a few around, buddy. So I'm going to go over the 6 paramitas. First is about giving. May I be generous and helpful. And you can read along with me if you would like. That is absolutely fine. It's the second page there. And I'll start again so we can do it together. So the first one's about giving. May I be generous and helpful. Then there's guidance. May I be guided by the Buddhist precepts. Tolerance. May I regard the mistakes of others with sympathy. Perseverance. May I do my best in all things. Meditation. May I reflect deeply on my life through the Buddha's teachings. Insight. May I understand the meaning of Nama Amida Butsu. Awesome. And we're going to keep on going here. So next I have the Buddhist Vada vows. So beings, we're going to read the first one. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Desires are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to become it. Excellent. And that's it for that. So today we are going to pick up where we left off last week. We have been discussing the Noble Eightfold Path, and so this week we are on the fourth spoke of the Noble Eightfold Path wheel, which is right action, and we're going to get right into that now.
What is the right action for each one of us in our daily life, in our occupations and so on? What is the right action? What is the correct way of living? If you challenge yourself, and I hope you are doing it now, what are you to do? So we have to inquire, what is action? Right? What do we mean by that word action? Whether you are married, whether you are not married, whether you are at office, whether you are very well off and independent and so on, so on, so on. What is correct thing to do in my life?
All right, so right action, the fourth spoke on the Noble Eightfold Path wheel. Right action extends the principles of ethical conduct into your physical actions. It encourages people to refrain from harmful actions such as killing, stealing, and causing harm to others. Right action promotes a life of integrity and moral responsibility. So, right action is one of the more cut and dry parts of the wheel. There's a lot more teachings on a lot of the other spokes of the wheel. Right action is very kind of basic. You don't kill, and that includes not just humans, but you refrain from doing things that is going to be detrimental to someone's psyche or physical body. Just being more aware that our actions do have consequences and they do affect other people. And so when we can make sure that we, we just talked about right intention, we can make sure that we incorporate the right view, the right intention, the right speech. And then here is the right action, right? So, of course, with all the others being said that we've already discussed and learned about, now we're at the right action. So what our actions are, how we act and carry ourselves throughout the day really does have a major effect on our karma, on other people. And so we want to make sure that we're choosing skillful actions as opposed to unskillful actions. We're going to get to the next thing.
Hello, it's Dyson here from Zenways. So, we've been talking about the Eightfold Path, taking it step by step. The next step that we're coming to now, we're looking at right behavior or right action. So we have this ethical basis of the precepts underlying Zen, and I think pretty much every branch of Buddhism has got a version of this. The precepts, things like not killing, not stealing, not lying, and so on. Particularly our physical actions causing harm to ourselves, causing harm to others, causing harm to the world would fit really in the sense of that would be the sorts of things that would be breaking the precepts here. We could view right action as doing our very best to live, to act, to be in harmony with our deepest sense of the truth of things. So often people come to me and talk about how their inner life, their meditative experience has transformed, how they're finding deep peace, deep joy, even bliss in their daily practice, their daily meditation. And then there's a sense of falling short in their life, that they're not living out the truth of what their inner cultivation is revealing. This is pretty normal, perhaps even universal. I don't think it's anything to worry about. It's much more helpful, I think, to literally practically start to explore how we're going to bring the fruits of our inner practice into this right action, this right behavior, aligned behavior, if you like. Now, nearly always, I recommend people take things in a very stepwise fashion, bite-sized chunks. Take one area of your life and keep it pretty small, pretty confined. Just one area that you're going to, as it were, bring this right action to bear, this mindful, aligned truth of your action. Something as simple as I don't know, making a cup of tea in the morning, or brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, getting dressed, something like this. And just really explore, what does it mean to make this one thing as attuned, as aligned as you can with your deepest sense of who and what you are and who and what reality actually expresses. You do that for a while, it starts to become a habit, it starts to take on a life of its own. Find another area of life in which this right action can start to manifest. Find another area again, and just little bit by little bit, week by week, if you take things in very small chunks, within a year, a couple of years, your life will be utterly transformed. Many of these things are quite small. You might even think trivial, but I don't think so at all. Ultimately, this work shows us that there is no trivial action. You could view tying your shoelaces as a means of saving all living beings.
That's an interesting point, right?
Along
Like
the
everything
way,
you can
as
do,
we
you
start
can
to,
integrate
as it were, nibble
a good
away at our
intention
lives
into
in
it.
this way, to bring this sense of right action more to bear. Within the many small choices that are there, big choices manifest as well. What do I do with my life? This money that I've inherited, what would it mean to use it well? Is it better for me to be in a kind of an intimate relationship, a marriage even, with somebody else? Should I have children? Should I not have children? There are many large choices within the patchwork or mosaic of smaller choices. We, as it were, build up our right action muscles by doing the small things, by, as it were, maintaining and developing this alignment in the kind of details of life. And then through that, we become more and more able to attune or align the big choices with our deepest truth. This is as we've mentioned a number of times in this series, this is your work of art. Your life is your work of art. Gradually, little bit by little bit, you become a finer artist. The choices that you make begin to shift, begin to change, and what you experience in your life becomes more clear, more beautiful, more joyful, more peaceful. Step by step, little bit by little bit, you manifest right action.
When we think of the idea of Buddhist ethics along the Eightfold Path, perhaps the first thing that comes to mind is right action.
Okay, so we're gonna stop right there. So in Buddhism, right action is the practicing of acting in a way that is in line with compassion and wisdom. It includes avoiding causing harm to others and instead helping others live a little life of a similar value. So spreading the teachings that you're learning now and the alignments that we're coming into through these teachings of the Buddha, and as opposed to kind of the old ways where we might have been thoughtless about what our actions or words meant until maybe they haunted us later. But in the moment, we have an opportunity to be an example, to be that light, that proof to other people. And especially when someone expects you to just, almost when they push your buttons and push you to act out of alignment. That is a perfect time to shine that light and that proof of that there is another way. And so making that choice in advance is what's going to kind of condition you to where your reactions are naturally going to start happening in such a way so that your actions are in alignment with the path that you're choosing to walk on, and to reach a place where you end your suffering and that you are that beacon of light for others, and that you will reach enlightenment, that you're vowing to continue on this path. So when we set our intentions, and that's why the spoke and the Noble Eightfold Path builds on itself, because you do have to start getting these other parts in alignment, so then when you come into opportunities to make skillful or unskillful choices of your actions, that you've already set yourself in the intention that this is my intention. I'm going to be a steward of this. I'm going to be an example of this path, and I'm going to shine my light and choose the best action versus just kind of ripping off at someone or doing things that you may regret later. So instead of causing harm to others, helping others have live a life with similar values. So they're going to see that in your action, and you may not have to even go any further. But there may be a time that they may come to you and say, hey, I really appreciated how you handled yourself in this situation. And they may actually ask you, a little bit more about your path. So right action can also be described as touching love and preventing harm. Here are some examples of right action. So protecting life. The Buddha's scriptures prohibit killing all living things, not just humans. So not to say that the Buddha didn't eat like meat, because he did. But one thing that he didn't want someone going out and specifically killing an animal just for him to eat. And so it really comes down to, of course, like you see a bug in your house or something, you may have the question arise, how does that, and we're going to get into it a little further, but how does that come into play? And so these are things that we're going to have to figure out for ourselves. how does your soul feel about it? What is the resonance of, now that you're getting your thoughts in alignment, your words, your views, your speech, now your actions, you'll have to determine where that line is for you, because I'm sure everyone's had a bug problem at a time or two, and you've had to make a choice of whether or not to let the bugs just continue to eat away at your house or make things, not so nice, or exterminate them. So this is where you have to really connect with your soul, with your higher self, and see how you resonate with certain things. But mindless killing something for no reason, you just see a bug crawling, a spider crawling, it's not hurting anyone or bothering anyone, and you just smash it, that would be unskillful. Okay, practicing generously. The giver receives the most benefit from giving. So, in times when we've given things and helped people or done something, gracious and nice, it feels good, right? It's a good feeling, feels good, and especially when it's received with a little bit of graciousness or whatnot. But the act itself is a rewarding act. When you see a person that could benefit from an action that you do, and you take your time and your energy on your path, and you do something helpful and give in some way, that has its own reward system. Responding to present moments. Okay, wisdom involves responding to the present moment without causing suffering for others or ourselves. So being in the now, responding in skillful ways is a big part of this right action. And then you could see the connection again back to the 3 prior spokes on the wheel, as in, by the way, that you have to already have your belief systems, figure out exactly what you truly believe in, and that, because that's going to affect your reactions to things. Already decide that you're going to have the best intention, and that you're going to work on your path. And so these are the things that are going to help you be in alignment in the moment, so that your reaction is from these places. So all the spokes of this wheel connect together beautifully for a reason. Another one is paying attention to the world as it is, and responding with compassion. Right? So if you're kind of like just shutting the world off in your own little world, you're not really seeing opportunities to walk in this path, right? You're not paying attention, and if you're not, then you're not going to see all the opportunities for you to display your light and be in your path further and further, and take further steps on your path. So paying attention to what's going on around you, not just being in the now and being closed off and always in your own little world, but to see the other things that are happening and be aware of those as also additional opportunities for you to walk in this path, and shine your light more on other people around you. Now we're going to go into this, and this is a little longer.
It's by acting rightly that we avoid regret and remorse. And by avoiding regret and remorse, the Buddha tells us, we're more able to calm the mind, to reach deep states of meditation, to see clearly the world, and indeed to come to eventual wisdom. This indeed is the approach that the Buddha recommends. It all begins with right action, with ethics generally. So what are the aspects of right action for the Buddha? In today's video, I'll be dealing with his background, Bhante Gunaratana's very good book, 8 Mindful Steps to Happiness. I'm not going to be following his descriptions precisely, but if you want to read more about all this, it's a book that I recommend picking up a copy of. And Bhante Gunaratana calls this skillful action, another way to understand right action. He compares it to the famous 5 precepts that we have in Buddhism.
Precepts
now,
are like
5
rules.
precepts are slightly different from right action. They're actually broader in scope. right action only includes three, at least traditionally, three main aspects. That is, not to kill, not to steal, and not to commit sexual misconduct. Those are the three major aspects. The five precepts include as well the injunction not to lie, which we already saw in the discussion of right speech in my last video. If you haven't seen that, I'll leave a link to it down below in the notes. And also the injunction to avoid intoxicants. Now, the fact that avoiding intoxicants is not part of right action in the Eightfold Path leads some commentators to believe that the reason we're supposed to avoid intoxicants is because intoxicants make us more likely to violate right action, and maybe even right speech as well. So, for example, when we become drunk, we become intoxicated, more likely that we're going to kill, steal, commit sexual misconduct, lie, indulge in harsh speech or divisive speech or idle chatter. These are all the ways that becoming intoxicated may make us behave in unskillful ways. Now, if this is the correct way to understand that, then at least some practitioners believe that it's perfectly okay to have a little bit of alcohol so long as we don't become drunk. It's when we become drunk that we really tend to lose our ability to behave ethically. And others believe that we should avoid alcohol entirely. But in any event, as I say, that's not really directly part of right action. It's simply part of an associated idea of these five precepts. So I want to turn now to these three major aspects of right action. And all of them, as we'll see, are open to broad interpretation, depending on how we understand them. The first is not to kill. And this may seem the most simple and direct and obvious of the three, but it's not. I mean, there's a lot of nuance here. One example of that nuance is that in many schools, not all, but many schools of the Mahayana, it's taken to imply vegetarianism because killing animals is implicated in the eating of meat, obviously. However, also true that the Buddha himself was not a vegetarian and specifically did not include vegetarianism in the training rules in the early Sangha. He did, however, believe that we should avoid eating meat that we believed was killed specifically for us. So the question is, does that kind of interpretation work for you? Does it not? Part of your own practice. Another related question has to do, let's say, with infestations of bugs that we might have in our kitchen or perhaps in our walls that are eating the wood in our house. How do we deal with those? One of my teachers was a leader of a retreat center, and they had that issue. And many people in the retreat center really didn't know what to do because their ordinary Buddhist attempts to be kind and compassionate to these bugs simply didn't work. It was a major infestation. And this leader of this retreat center finally had to say that he would take on the karmic baggage of exterminating these bugs because they simply made the kitchen unhealthy to use. This is an example. Some will say that it's not right to kill insects, but that, let's say, using antibiotics to kill bacteria is perfectly fine. Others will say that, if insects become unhealthy to us, again, if they're in a kitchen or if they're perhaps destroying our house, that's one thing, but if they're not, that's a separate thing. All of this, again, is going to be up to our interpretation, how we understand it. And there are similar difficult questions around killing when it involves abortion or euthanasia. Now, the Buddha himself never discusses abortion per se. I did discuss a little bit of it in a video I did in the past on vagueness, and I'll leave a link to that down below in the notes. However, the Buddha did discuss euthanasia on several occasions, and they're really quite interesting discussions. The Buddha seems to have been, we might say, even surprisingly amenable to it in certain limited circumstances. Once again, I did a video on that as well. I'll leave a link to that down below if you want to hear more about that. One overarching question comes up, I think, here, which is whether it's possible to kill with compassion. And many of us might say that it simply isn't. However, one early Mahayana sutra from around the 1st century before the Common Era argues that it is possible to do this. This is the sutra on skill in means. In this sutra, the Buddha appears in a past life as the captain of a ship. His name is Great Compassionate. And on this ship there are 500 wealthy merchants and one robber intent on murdering these 500 merchants and taking all of their wealth. The captain of the ship, this man named Great Compassionate, is aware of this and also aware that the only way that he's going to be able to stop this murderer from achieving his aims is to kill him himself. So he decides that even if killing this murderer, or this potential murderer, would send him to hell, that he, the captain, is going to kill the murderer before the murderer is able to kill all these 500 merchants and take their wealth. And he does this. He kills this murderer and so saves the 500 merchants. And although it's said, the captain says that he's willing to undertake the pains of hell to do this, it's pretty clear from the context that this is an example of acting out of compassion, pure compassion, and so presumably his karma is good, having done this act. Now, of course, the question comes, what do you think of this? How does this appear to you? Does it seem to you that this is a reasonable kind of case, that we can kill with compassion? There's a problem here. Of course, this is sort of a slippery slope. I mean, we can think of almost any murder or killing as at least somewhat compassionate in the sense that the person who did it presumably thought they had a good reason to. But that gets us too far, clearly, plainly. On the other hand, it does sort of seem as though perhaps this captain did the right thing in saving 500 people. It's definitely a difficult and tough issue to come to terms with. And it also shows that an apparently simple practice like don't kill actually has a lot of complexity and nuance in it, even from within a Buddhist context. Now, the next two aspects of right action I'm not going to deal with in quite as much detail. There are similar nuances with both. When it comes to stealing, for example, we might say, well, it's pretty obvious we're not supposed to take something that's not offered freely or that's not given to us. However, we might wonder about the case where we walk out of a bank with the bank's pen in our hands. Is that stealing? Or if we take home material from our job, perhaps paper or pens, small things that just sort of end up in our house from our job. Is that stealing? Or perhaps we might ask about taking an egg from a chicken or fruit from a tree. Is that stealing or not? All of these are questions that we have to practice with and come to terms with mindfully in our lives to decide what we think counts and what we think doesn't. When it comes to sexual misconduct, there's a big difference between how that's interpreted in a monastic and versus a lay context. In a monastic context, any sexual activity was sexual misconduct. Monastics were supposed to remain celibate. That's one of the significant distinctions, at least in the early Sangha, between monastics and lay people. However, for lay people, at least in the early texts, this is sexual misconduct is framed, I would say, very narrowly as something where men are not supposed to have sex with women who are in what's called a protected state, or understood to be a protected state. That is to say, if women are under the protection of their parents, under the protection of their spouses, or under the protection of the Sangha. However, I think nowadays we have a broader and a somewhat, I would say, wiser interpretation of this, where the idea is that sexual misconduct involves essentially the idea of consent. Does the other person consent? And also, in general, the idea of harm. Sexual misconduct is sexual activity that harms another person, whereas the sexual activity that does not harm anybody is not misconduct. And I think if we understand right action as avoiding harm generally, then it becomes a bigger topic than simply avoiding killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, important though those are. And we might wonder if there are other ways that we act harmfully. For example, do we act in ways that are harmful to the biosphere, to the environment around us? This is something that It was less apparent during the Buddha's day, where things were much simpler and much smaller scale, but have become important nowadays. Now, virtually anything we do is going to be harmful somewhere, somehow. Even breathing out is harmful in a certain way and adding to the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But what we have to work with for the Buddha is our intentions, the character of our intentions. That's the heart of our practice. And so what we want to do, perhaps, we may consider, is to work in ways that inform our intentions, by understanding ways that we could act that is less harmful, perhaps, and understand ways in which our actions become harmful so that we can reduce the burden of delusion that is upon us. Understanding things in that way may help us to bend our intentions over time, to wonder if there are ways that we can change our actions so that we're behaving less harmfully. We may also wonder if there are positive actions that we can take to help the world, perhaps acting in ways politically to help things forward, perhaps donating to worthy people or worthy causes, perhaps acting in other ways that are generous. Now, for the Buddha, in general, ethics was framed in negative terms. That is to say, the Buddha was most interested in our avoidance of things that caused harm, in our avoidance of the bad, as it were, of the unskillful. When it came to positive actions, good actions, skillful actions, that could almost be understood as sort of the icing on the cake. Once we've avoided all the bad ones, we're really, that sort of encompasses the scope of ethics. But when we act beneficially, that's helping on top of our ethical norms and adding to them. So, for example, when any generous act we do is beneficial for the Buddha. And so finding ways to be generous in our ideas and our thoughts, with our wealth, with our time, is all beneficial. And we might consider right action, when we're thinking of the issue of right action, ways that we can expand upon that by being generous as well as by avoiding harm. In my next video, I'll talk about right livelihood, the next stage along the Eightfold Path. When that video is ready, I'll put it up here on the screen.
All right. So each week we have some things to think about throughout the week. So you can call it homework. It's actually path work, life work. It's, building on what we're hoping to achieve, which is enlightenment and freeing ourselves from the suffering that we kind of bring into our lives. So this week we're gonna think about right action and how it can look different for each person, and some tips for practicing right action. So this week, if you'll use your journals and you'll write down your views and notice when you get caught in them, like your views and the things that you find you're like, oh, I caught myself thinking about something like that I used to resonate with because I was taught that, but now that I'm actually discerning things, I caught myself with one of these things. So write it down and, ponder on it for a little while, use it in a meditation, whatever, but take notice to catching yourself this week on trying to kind of like go backwards, if you will. Become aware when you go back to the past and are pulled into the future. So be aware. When you start to pick up a whole old habit that you've been trying to change, trying to become more aware of, start to catch yourself doing these things and tell on yourself. Write it down in your journal. And this is the best way to keep our kind of ego brain from, almost waiting a little while and then just naturally going back like, oh, okay, they caught me, type of thing. So yeah, be more aware of that when you notice those things happening. Also, observe how you can come back into the present in these moments. So, simply by catching yourself, you can say, no, this is what I'm doing now. You can't, no tricky. I know you want to go back to where you were comfortable in the same little cycle. We are, elevating our consciousness, our vibration, and walking on this path. So catch yourself and observe how you can control that. You can bring yourself back to the present. Make up your mind to sit for a set of time every day. So let's not make it real complicated and be like, no, you can't have any thoughts. You can't, like, of course, some are going to arise, but gently just tell yourself, no, we're just sitting in quiet here. But dedicate a little bit of time each morning before you start your day, or at night before going to bed. If you can do both, that's amazing. But try to make your mind up about that. Try to set the intention to do that at least one point throughout the day. And that's really going to be a nice guide for you throughout the rest of the day. So that would be our homework for this week. So just, and if you want to get a copy of that or snapshot what I have here, we can definitely do that. So now we're going to do the Patanjali chant and moving forward. Namaste. So I want to share something with you that can help you during meditations, breath work, mindfulness, just to still your mind, quiet yourself, and allow more access to hear your higher self. Om Yogena Sutasha Bodhenu Vatra Padam Travashadikena Yopagradim Rabadam Bodhidam Patanjaliyam. Now we always like to do it a couple times, don't we? So we will start over. I think it's right about here. Quiet yourself and allow more access to hear your higher self. Om Yogena Tutasha Bodhenu Vatra Param Travashadikena Yopagradim Rabadam Bodhidam Patanjaliyam. More access to hear your higher self. And the last time. Om Yogena Tutasha Bodhenu Vatra Padam Travashadikena Yopagradim Rabadam Bodhidam Patanjaliyam. Awesome. Namaste. And to clear some blockages. So anyone has anything specifically that you want to bring to your mind's eye, just see it kind of going up into the air, just like light or smoke, and just leaving you, freeing you from any blockages. And I'm going to go around and help that process out for everyone. I'm going to start right here. So now I want to do a quick meditation. We're going to do a body scan meditation. So if you want to just gently close your eyes and blow out all your any stale air that you might still have or energy. And we're just going to just breathe. If you know the infinity breath, you just make a loop like an infinity sign and just follow your breathing. I'm just going to become aware of our feet and our toes, and as we breathe, we're just going to feel that bringing relaxation to our toes and our feet. And with each breath, we're just going to feel that energy and the awareness moving up our legs, feeling the energy rising within us. And then we're going to feel it more in our hips and our bellies, rising up with each breath. And then we're going to be aware of our chest and our heart, and just feel that energy rising up through our spine and coming into our heart chakra, and you can just feel it growing and spreading with the awareness and opening up more widely for us. And then we're going to be aware that the energy is moving up into our throat chakra. You may feel inclined to make a noise or hum through. And then the energy is rising up into our necks and our shoulders. You may want to just wiggle them a little bit and feel that energy going up into your head, into your third eye chakra. Just feel the energy there. You may visualize your third eye opening wider because you're giving it attention, and you're allowing the Kundalini energy to rise up into the third eye. And then just take another really nice deep breath and pull it all the way up through your body, and then feel it shoot out through your crown chakra. And take another deep breath and just circulate that energy from your toes all the way through your head and back through like an infinity sign. And just take a minute just to feel that energy flowing through your body and connecting with all energy. Just following your breath. Okay, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes again. Feels good, right? Today's video is a climate of acceptance. A climate of acceptance. If we could generate a climate of acceptance, perhaps we wouldn't need to feel challenged by people's differences, but instead could all learn to accept that each person is unique, with his or her own unique way of thinking, feeling, and seeing the world, so we wouldn't always expect them to think and behave like us, but instead could accept the strength in the variety and diversity. Yes. Pontificate this for a while today and see how it might help you in your life. Please become part of the family by joining the YouTube channel and like and share so we can share the Reiki healing of the mind with others. Namaste. Yes, I know there's times in our lives where we felt like our views and our ideas and the way that we act and everything doesn't resonate with other people. But when you start to accept that also about yourself, you accept your own unique way of being and stop comparing yourself to other people and just accept who you are, it naturally just happens in your environment. So when you do it for yourself, it naturally becomes like a part of who you are. And so then you can find that you're also extending that out to others. And so it does start with us. And when you do that naturally for yourself, as I said, it's just going to exude out of you. And the way that your connections with people are when you start to do that for them, you actually see them and you see that they're unique and special instead of, just trying to compare or even judge. Then your relationships are really gonna start to grow, and the interactions that you have with people are gonna feel a lot more pure and wholesome and skillful. And then you're not always looking over your shoulder as well about who is judging you and what other people are thinking about you. So it kind of diminishes a lot of those things right off the rip. But the easiest way to start is with ourselves and doing that for ourselves, and then naturally that becomes a part of who you are and the love that you share with others. Awesome. So I just want to take some time to say thank you everyone that joined us today, and open the floor for any discussion or questions that anyone may have at this point. Excellent. Well, until next week, I hope that everyone will take the opportunity to write in their journal and catch themselves if they start to find themselves projecting backwards to old views, old speech, old intentions, and keep our actions in alignment with our intention, our vow to ourself, to cultivate the highest outcomes for this lifetime for ourselves by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths, and just really ultimately, offering the best of yourself and the best light possible that you can hold for yourself in your light, and catching yourself when you find yourself venturing back a little bit, because the more that we do that, the more that we're aware of these things, kind of like with a child, they want attention, right? So sometimes they're going to push buttons just to see if you love them enough to pay attention and to do what it takes to help them to be able to learn some things in life that helps them to succeed in their life and find happiness. So we have to also do that for ourselves, right? So throughout the week, just pay more attention, because now that you're paying attention to it, you're gonna find yourself doing it. And then when you can be more aware of that, that's when you realize that you do have the power to be like, I'm in the present. I saw what we just did there, but now I'm bringing myself back and I'm following the path and getting myself back in alignment with the skillful actions versus the unskillful. So, all right, namaste. Thank you everyone for joining, and I will see you next week. If anyone would like to donate that is on the live, you can follow the link lotusflowercandle.com /donations, and you can donate at that link. Thank you very much. Have a blessed week.